Hello, this is a short video about what I am calling the 90% economic recovery model. Basically, it is a model of the economy or a view of the economy and its recovery from this coronavirus recession, in which the economy recovers most of the way back, but not completely, from the coronavirus recession. And in this video, I'll be using the Aggregate Supply, Aggregate Demand model to explain how that happens. Now, this video was inspired by the Economist magazine cover from last week, basically describing this 90% economic recovery. And, in the Economist magazine, they get into some of the implications of what might this mean for economic policy and society coming out of this recession. Now, basic idea of using the Aggregate Supply, Aggregate Demand model is that it's a simple model taught in most introductory economics classes, and it basically breaks the economy down into three parts. The aggregate supply side of the economy, which is the productive side of the economy. Think of this as the labor, the capital, the technology that's used in making things in the economy. There's the demand side of the economy, which is the sectors of the economy that consume the goods that are produced, right? These are consumers, it's business investment, and also the government. And as sort of a measuring point of the economy, there is the level of potential output. This is the full employment level of the economy. This is a useful point to reference because it gives us an idea of how much the economy should be producing if everything is working well. Now, the benefit of the Aggregate Supply, Aggregate Demand model is that it can kind of give us an idea of how different economic changes will affect economic output, the level of unemployment, and the level of inflation in the economy. Now, when we think about this coronavirus recession that we're living through right now, what is that recession like? Well, we've gone through this process, and we're still in this process of stay-at-home orders, in which both aggregate demand and aggregate supply have been pushed inwards. Aggregate supply, right, companies are not able to produce as much as they used to. Large numbers of businesses across the United States remain shuttered. Their workers are at home. Because workers are at home and they can't go out and spend money, aggregate demand has gone down, aggregate supply has gone down, and we're left at an equilibrium point that is below potential. And this gives us our recession. And you can visibly see this recession in the unemployment rate that is roughly about 20%. Now, in the face of this deep recession, the government has enacted some extraordinary economic policy. The federal government has enacted stimulus, first stimulus of $3.2 trillion, followed by an additional almost $500 billion, and the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates to pretty close to zero and buying huge amounts of different types of investments on financial markets to provide stability to financial markets. All of this has been designed to sort of bridge the economy from over this pandemic time to get us to the other side when we can start the recovery. Now, there's been a lot of debate about the shape of the recovery, and it's almost become sort of a game of alphabet in which people talk about the recoveries in different alphabet shapes. There is the V shape, right, the sudden decline and fast recovery. The idea we went down fast, but we're going to get back to it real fast. There is the idea of the U-shape, a sudden decline and then a slow protracted recovery. Sort of comparable to what happened following the financial crisis in 2008 and the recession in 2009, which it took years to get back. There's the idea of the L-shaped recovery, the idea that we are going through a sudden decline and that there won't be a recovery, that we'll actually get bogged down in some kind of deep depression. And finally, there's what's become thought of as the W shape, which is the sudden decline followed by a strong recovery, followed by a second wave of the pandemic that will cause another decline, followed by another recovery, and that could be repeating on and on and on. There could be a pretty good debate, and there has been a pretty good debate about these different letter responses, but I don't think that any of these letters quite get to a more realistic idea of an incomplete recovery. One where the economy will get 90% of the way back, but not all the way. So If you think about the 90% recovery, you might model it to look like this, what I would describe as a weird square root symbol, where you see the economy going down significantly, bottoming out, and then actually making a very sharp recovery, right? What would seem to be a V-shaped recovery. And starting off this recovery, many people would probably say, wow, we are in that V-shaped recovery. But then you'll notice most of the way back up towards the recovery begins to stall out and begins to behave more like what we'd expect from the L-shaped, almost depression type economy. It kind of keeps growing, but it keeps growing at a very, very slow rate. And one of the issues with this 9% recovery is that it's going to take us a long time to get back to full employment. Now, how might this look in the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model? Well, let's break it down and do aggregate demand first. The basic idea of the 90% model is that it's going to be a fast recovery followed by a slow recovery. It's going to be basically a two-speed recovery. The fast recovery at first, right, the rapid push out of aggregate demand at the beginning is going to be caused by pent-up demand. Lots of people have been sitting at home for basically 2 months and not being able to spend much money and not being able to do much things that they want to do, and they're going to want to get out there and spend money. And given the first opportunity to get out there, they will get out there and they will start spending. And this is going to drive a pretty fast recovery at first in aggregate demand. However, over time, this will slow down for a number of reasons. First, while there's been a lot of people who have been able to maintain their income and work from home during this recession, there are a lot of other people who have been furloughed from work, who have lost income because of this recession. A lot of the people who are on unemployment have not been able to fully collect their benefits due to bureaucratic snafus and weaknesses in the unemployment system. So there's a lot of people coming into this recovery who have been severely damaged in income and in earnings, and that's going to hurt the ability that they have to actually get out and spend more once the economy starts to recover. There's also going to be the problem of fear of infection. A lot of people are going to be going back out worried if they're going to get infected in a store, at a restaurant, doing something out there in the economy. And this is largely a big problem of the weak testing program that we have in the country. People do not have the confidence or level of trust to get fully back out in the economy. And there's also the issue of continued high unemployment. When unemployment is high, there's still going to be a lot of people who, even if they have jobs, who are nervous about losing their jobs. And so they might actually curtail their spending and save more. All of that is going to slow down, aggregate demand as it's pushing out. And so we might get back very quickly to a certain level, but then as we go beyond that, things are going to be slowing it down. On the supply side, again, the story is going to be one of fast and slow. Basically, it's going to be really easy to reopen businesses. The existing capacity is there. Restaurants are standing there. Stores are standing there. They're ready to go. In terms of the workers, the owners of the businesses can just call back their previous workers and their workers will come back. It'll be really easy to stand up these businesses again. However, there could be some real problems. One is there's the issue of businesses that aren't around anymore because of bankruptcy. But even beyond that, there's the issue of social distancing rules. Basically, that's going to limit what restaurants can produce. It's going to limit what stores can do. It's going to limit what offices can do. There's going to be an awful lot of limitations across the economy that's going to reduce the capacity of the economy. We're not going to be able to fully utilize all the space we have because we're going to have to keep socially distanced to keep down infection rates. And there's the issue of businesses looking to cut costs to gain efficiency. A lot of businesses have been hurt badly financially by this recession. They might come into the recovery and say, boy, we've got to rebuild our balance sheets, so we're going to become more efficient. That could lead to higher unemployment. They're not going to necessarily hire back all the workers they had before. All of this means that our supply at first will get moving out quickly, but then begin to slow down. And you can see here, our demand curve shifts out, our supply curve shifts out, but their new equilibrium point is below the level of potential GDP. There is still an output gap. The recovery is incomplete. It's 90% of the way there. Now the problem with this is that this inability to have a full recovery might actually mean that our economy will become smaller, right? We'll make up that additional 10% by actually losing capacity in the economy. How would this happen? Well, part of it is going to be that potential output will contract because the ability of the economy to produce things will degrade, right? Many unemployed workers, if they're unemployed for a long time, their skills will no longer be as useful. They may lose connections with their workplaces, with employment, and it'll be harder for them to get back into the workplace. In addition, many businesses that have gone bankrupt, you could have an awful lot of capacity that just goes underutilized for a very, very long time. And so this could create this, larger unemployment problem in society. And one of the issues with this 90% recovery is that we could be looking at a higher rate of unemployment in the long run. And that's going to require an awful lot of thinking about what kind of economic policy to do to address that. Should there be more economic stimulus to try to push out aggregate demand? Should there be more help given to businesses to further push out aggregate supply to get back out to that potential level of GDP? Should there be some kind of support given to these unemployed workers who might be unemployed for a much longer period of time because of this incomplete recovery? So having a model at least provides a framework for having a policy discussion about maybe what should be done in response to a potentially incomplete recovery.